Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast here on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Today, we're going to talk about someone we haven't had a chance to talk about or write about at Big Blue View for a very, very long time. We are going to talk about Odell Beckham Jr., former New York Giants great wide receiver, also a controversial figure with the New York Giants. Beckham is in the news as it relates to the Giants currently because of an interview he did recently where he said, I quote, that he said, "I never ever wanted to leave the New York Giants." He went on to say that what he really wanted was to win a Super Bowl, be the guy who brought the Giants back to Super Bowl glory. And, and as I said, he said he never wanted to leave the Giants. And we're going to dredge up some of the past history here. We're going to dredge all that up again. And I know that there are probably still people who are Giants fans who the subject of Odell Beckham Jr. and the fact that the Giants traded him away touches a nerve, even though the Giants ended up in that trade. They got a draft pick that turned into Dexter Lawrence. So they made out pretty well in the long run in that trade. But that's not the point. That's not what we really want to discuss here. What I want to talk about is Beckham and his culpability for the fact that he eventually did get traded from the Giants. Listen, I know for a fact that co-owner John Mara loved Odell Beckham Jr. He never wanted Odell Beckham to leave the Giants. Mara said, much like he had said at times about Saquon Barkley, he wanted Odell Beckham Jr. to be a Giant for the entirety of his career. And when push comes to shove, I understand, there are still people who are annoyed when you bring up Dave Gettleman trading Odell Beckham after saying, I didn't sign him to trade him, after signing Beckham to a long-term mega contract. But in my view, in my world, and I'm going to say this, there's no way you can convince me otherwise. The person who is responsible for the demise of Odell Beckham's career in New York, the person who wrecked it, is Odell Beckham Jr. The interview that he did in 2018 with Josina Anderson, I think then of ESPN, with Lil Wayne, for some strange reason sitting beside him and not doing Odell any favors by reining him in at all. That was the final straw. And we'll talk a little bit about the things that Odell said there. But listen, it was Beckham's histrionics, the kicking net, the distractions off the field. And I don't ever mean this to say that Beckham was a bad guy. But you go back and you look at Beckham's time with the Giants, and as great as he was on the field, Odell Beckham always had a habit of finding a way to make the story about himself and to make the story about something other than football. He was always in the headlines for something that did not relate to his tremendous talent as an NFL player. He was always in the headlines for things that didn't help the New York Giants football team or the New York Giants organization. And I don't have the list of everything in front of me, but that's how it went with the Giants and with Beckham for years. There was always something going on that had nothing to do with Odell Beckham, the football player. And I think that's just a young, very rich, incredibly talented young man who still had some growing up to do. Guy that had always been told how great he was, and by and large was able to get what he wanted when he wanted it. And I don't know what it's like to be in that situation, but as I said, a minute or so ago, to me, when it comes down to it, Odell Beckham ended Odell Beckham's time with the New York Giants. When you want to talk specifically about the interview with Josina Anderson, Odell Beckham didn't sound like a guy who never ever wanted to leave the New York Giants. Josina Anderson asked him in that interview, asked him if he was happy in New York. Beckham didn't say he was happy. He hemmed and hawed and more or less said he didn't know if he was happy. Um, he was asked, what he said that he was being held back, and he didn't necessarily name names. He didn't necessarily say it was Pat Shermer who was holding him back. He didn't necessarily say it was Eli Manning. He was near the end of his career as a Giants quarterback at that point in time who was holding him back. But he didn't defend his quarterback either. He said, I can't get the ball more than 20 yards down the field. Everything has to be in front of me. We know Eli won't move out of the pocket. We can't throw anything deep. I would love to be able to beat somebody down the field and all of those things. He didn't deny, or he didn't deflect the idea that he was not happy with Eli Manning being his quarterback with the New York Giants. And it would have been nice if Odell Beckham had been able to play with Eli Manning when Eli Manning was at the height of his career, when the Giants were winning Super Bowls. Maybe 2012, 2013, after the second Super Bowl would have been nice. But it didn't work out that way. Beckham never really got to play with Manning when Manning was at his best. But if you want to stay in New York, you sound like you want to stay in New York. We talked, Giants media, we talked to defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence toward the tail end of last season. And Lawrence, the Giants' best player, after 6 years, an all-pro caliber player, tremendous guy, good leader, good guy, has every right to be upset. And really, if he wanted to ask out, demand a trade, because of the way things have gone for the last few years with the Giants, nobody would blame him, I think. His career's only going to last so long. He's only got a finite number of years as the caliber player that he currently is. And of course he wants to maximize those. And he was asked, about his frustrations with all of the losing. And of course he's worn down by it. Of course he's unhappy. But he said, whatever it needs, whatever it takes to turn this around. He said he didn't want to leave. He said, I'm here for it. He said, I just want to win. He wants to be here. He said he wants to be here. He sounded like a guy ready and willing to lead players, not be a distraction, and not throw his head coach under the bus, not throw his quarterback under the bus. Had Odell Beckham simply said, I love New York City. I want to be here. This is the place. This is where they drafted me. This is a great place for me to to go through my career, had he said Eli Manning is a Hall of Fame quarterback, maybe it's not going the way we all want it to go right now, but we know that it can, or I have confidence that it can, because I know who my quarterback is and I have faith in that quarterback. But he didn't say that. He hemmed and hawed and talked around it and made it clear without defending Eli that he wasn't thrilled with having Eli Manning as his quarterback. So for me, when I look at those things, when I look at, even, I was at a game in Philly, the year that he scored a touchdown, and he ran over to the corner of the end zone and he peed on the pylon. He pretended to pee on the pylon like a dog, and that's not how you represent a franchise. That's not how you lead a franchise. That's not how you show class. And maybe that's me, and maybe that's an aside, and maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned that, but it was one of the things that Beckham did that just turned me off, and and made me think that this guy's priority isn't just being a great football player. And I guess that's what I always thought about Beckham, is he says that he says now that and he said in that interview, he just wanted to be great. He wanted to be a Hall of Famer. He wanted to be the best he could be, and all of that is all well and good. But for me, many of the things that he did during his time in New York distracted from that purpose, took away from that purpose, and made it harder for him to be what he wanted to be, and really eventually, led the Giants to think that they finally had to move on from Beckham. And, I guess what I wanted to hear in the interview that he did this weekend is something that I didn't hear, and something that you don't hear often enough from guys who get a chance to get away from a situation and gain some perspective on it. I wanted to hear Beckham take some responsibility. I wanted to hear him say that, the interview with Josina Anderson was a mistake. Some of the things he said in that interview were mistakes, that he should have been more mature about it, that he shouldn't have that he should have defended his quarterback, that he should have been more vocal about his love for New York and his desire to get it right in New York when he had the platform to do that. So for me, I just can't get all worked up, and I can't feel sorry for Beckham, and I can't say, "Oh, gee, Odell, it's a shame that it didn't work out that way for you," because it didn't work out that way for Odell because of Odell, period. That's simply how I feel about it. You guys may disagree. Drop comments drop comments below if you feel differently, or if you agree with me. I'll take the support too, but I'll take the slings and arrows if you're still an Odell Beckham fan, and you want to defend Odell, you want to blast Dave Gettleman for trading him. But either way, I appreciate you guys listening and offering your opinions. So please feel free to do that. I was considering talking about a couple of other things today, but I think that we'll just cut the show off right there and leave this as my sort of Odell Beckham rant for today. So we'll just leave it right there. All right, Giants fans, thank you as always for watching. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.